and 2 on bikes riding down the sidewalk. And as a parent, my immediate thought was, what happens if one of these children loses control of their bike and falls into the ditch that was where the basements used to be? Or if kids do what we played in dirt. We saw stuff like that, and that looked like, to a child, that looks like playtime, especially in a neighborhood where you have a concentration of blighted properties and you don't have a lot of recreation space. So from that, I started kind of researching, like, I'm pretty sure it's supposed to be a gate. Like, I'm pretty sure it should be a sign. And then that became, why do we have all these vacant properties? How did we get to this point? And so Fight Blight Be More was really born from that. What I discovered is, like Dr. Seam, I use a lot of the data from being as vital signs in my work, that you have many neighborhoods in Baltimore which are more than 30% blighted or vacant, right? Now, that's only one portion of the problem, because when you talk to the city, they talk about vacant properties and they talk about it from the standpoint of vacant house notices. When I'm talking about blight, I'm talking about the presence of vacant, abandoned, dilapidated, underutilized, and misutilized properties in community. So a problem that the city says is roughly 17,000 vacant properties and 16,000 vacant lots is much larger when you account for those other 4 classes of property. Specifically, if we think about underutilized properties and misutilized properties. So in communities where you don't have access to grocery stores, or you don't have access to high quality shopping, but you allow the number of liquor licenses that many of these same neighborhoods have, you're increasing blight, because that is a misutilization of properties. There, I can ride down Pennsylvania Avenue. I can't count 4 stores. I can't count 4 grocery stores almost in all of West Baltimore, but in a mile stretch of Pennsylvania Avenue, I can count 4 liquor stores. So the problem of blight is much bigger than just the number of 30% vacancy, right? This is actually the 800 block of Emerson Avenue. It's the block behind where I live. 40-some 1920 townhomes. Again, of the 40 of them today, when I took this picture, 4 had people living in them. Today, only 3 do. This space right here is actually slated for demolition right now. Now it has a gate. The demolition sites more and more have gates after my work began, but also because of the governor's core demolition program, which basically is going to level large parts of West Baltimore, which some people think is a good thing. But when you then hear from community workers like Andre Robinson that the average time it takes for a vacant lot to then be developed into something is 15 years. Vacant lots don't make communities safer. They actually, if you look at the study out of Pittsburgh, contribute to community trauma. So that study, basically, they took people past vacant lots and they took people past lots that had been greened. And what you saw is when people see vacant lots, their heart rate actually increases by 7 beats per minute. Now that might not matter on a, just by itself, but when you add in all of the additional traumas that people experience who live in communities that have high concentrations of blight, those extra heartbeats, or that elevated heart rate, is a sign of stress. That stress to the body then, deals with heart disease, which is one of the #1 killers, diabetes, asthma. All of these things contribute to the physical condition of people living in communities. And so from all of the research, 1 or 2 things I found. One is that people in blighted neighborhoods do not have an easy access tool to report instances of blight or instances of vacancy or bad demolitions to the appropriate parties. So one of the things that we're developing is an actual app that will do that. If you ever use Baltimore City 311, even the new app version is whack. And whack in the way, like, So I reported a vacant property that happened to be city owned, where the third floor had fallen in and there were bricks everywhere. They sent the structural people out. The structural people said, oh, well, it's been fall now, so the rest of it is stable. But they didn't send anybody to clean the bricks up. So I've already had to send 2 emails. I made 4 Facebook posts, and I made 2 311 requests. And guess what? When I go home, them bricks are still there. So part of what the app is designed to do is help people in community bridge that gap. So folks will use their phone, take a picture, tag the hazards. Right now, the way things are set up is those emails will come to us and then we will follow up on them. But eventually it'll be coded to send it directly to the appropriate parties in the city, whether it's city council people, whether it's DPW, because what we have now with 311 is not working. But the second piece that I discovered is that people in community often don't have access to the data that they need to go speak truth to power about what we need in terms of community development. So I'll give you an example. Baltimore, if you take the 2.8 mile stretch on Eastern Avenue from President Street to the 95 exit, to the access exit for 95, there are 5 grocery stores and 1 public market. If you take the 2.8 mile stretch from Franklin and Fremont to Emerson and Swan, there is 1 grocery store. Harlem Park and Emerson Village are predominantly Black neighborhoods. Harbor East, Canton, and Fells Point are predominantly white neighborhoods. It's curious, we hear people say, well, we can't get a grocery store because Emerson Village, Harlem Park, Upton, blah, 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 are vacant, they blighted, it's crime, blah, blah, blah. But if I shopped, which I did, I went to Target, I had a list of staples, I went to the Target in Canton, I bought milk, I bought water, I bought a can of beans, I bought condoms, I bought sanitary napkins. I bought, household staples that humans need, right? I spent $32 on 10 items. I went to the corner store at the corner of Fremont and Emerson. I bought the same 10 items. I got less items, less in quantity, and less quality items for $42. So when folks in community go and are advocating for things like grocery stores, a lot of times they don't have those data points. So we seek to provide those data points, because my contention is, if I can pay $2 for a gallon of water at the corner store, then I can pay $5 for 5 gallons of water from Whole Foods. So when people in community try to create or bring to fruition the things that they know that their community needs, a lot of times they don't have the data. And so one of the things that we seek to do is really to give the village the data that it needs, contextualized in a way that makes sense for us, so that when folks go down City Hall and they're speaking, they don't, because a lot of times it's a lot of emotion. And so when you speak with a lot of emotion, instead of the human thing being to hear the emotion that people are expressing, if you don't have no numbers to go with it, if you don't have nothing that folks can measure, you get thrown out of the window as being, the angry Black woman or the wild Black man, whatever, the stereotypes are. So we seek to kind of bridge that gap and give folks the data that they need, the statistics that they need, to go and speak truth to power. And they can speak it in any way they want to, but then they can't be dismissed for not having measurable data and outcomes and all that other stuff that really doesn't matter. If somebody is screaming to the top of their lungs in a city council meeting and been doing it for the last 20 years, it's clearly a problem. And maybe they actually have the solution. So we kind of talked about the app, but really I'm showing this picture, and I use this picture because it's indicative of like what we live with. This isn't like, some far off place. This is 20 minutes, not even 20 minutes from where you're sitting right now. This isn't, and it's 5 minutes from where I live. I drive past here every day. Sometimes we do, one of the things I noticed is people really didn't understand the depth of the problem. And so last summer, we did a series of hood hikes. This is where I live. I walk through this neighborhood. I'm not scared. I've actually been all over the world. And I tell people all the time, there's no way I can't walk. There's no way I can't walk, because if you can walk through West Baltimore with your head held high, you can walk through, and I mean anywhere in the world. And it's because we live with these conditions. Not only do we live with these conditions, people thrive. It's past survival. People actually thrive under these conditions and could be doing much more if they didn't have to walk in the street past, this right here is a situation that is dangerous on a number of levels. Because if I'm walking in the street and Baltimore City Police pull up, that becomes an immediate situation for me, right? Why are you walking in the street? Well, where else am I supposed to walk? So it's those types of things that people don't think about as the danger. And then we're calling it in-reach and not outreach, because we're reaching in. We're in the community. We are the community. I said we this whole presentation. Fight Blight Be More is me. Is one person physically today, but I have a whole network of folks that I in-reach to do this work and expand this work. So there's always an ask, right? And typically this pitch is done for funders. But if somebody got some money, want to write a check to Fight Blight Be More, please pull out I got Cash App, we got PayPal, I take check, I'll take cash. I don't care if it's ones and they balled up, right? But in this context, I really want to ask folks to follow us on social media, but also check out our website. There is a white paper that I wrote that really documents the problem specifically of blight in Baltimore. And it makes suggestions about what the municipality can do to change things and to really shake up the narrative. And so that's my presentation, but I'd be happy I know that folks have questions or might want clarification on something. I'd be happy to answer all. I think they're getting you a mic. I think they're getting you a microphone.
Something about the 311 because it is difficult to deal with them out of my own experience.
Yeah, they special.
Hi, thank you, Nika, for your presentation. I'm just seeing Baltimore Reimagine the butterfly effect behind you. Can you tell us something about that?
So this image actually was created by a muralist named Megan. And so she's actually working on we are collaborating on a project to do a mural. And this just typifies, I use the butterfly because of Lawrence Brown's work, defining the black butterfly and the white L. And I run in a community of artists. I'm an artist myself. And so I wanted to do something that was give an artistic representation of what we're experiencing, and using a butterfly was perfect because there's a space for metamorphosis here. And so that's I gave her my idea and she put that together. And we really are thinking about a Baltimore reimagined, because part of what happens when you live in a blighted community, Dr. Coco said to me in a conversation, she's one of our elders here. She said, when a child has to walk past 29 vacant properties on the way to school, they've already failed the first grade. And I was like stuck. But when I thought about it, what does a child think about themselves when their community, the thing that teaches you your value, community is what teaches you your value as a human being. When your community looks like much of West Baltimore and much of East Baltimore, what do you perceive about yourself, right? And how does that limit innovation and imagination in community or in the world? Really, half of the stuff, self-driving cars, that all started as it's all fantasy. It starts in our mind, but when your conditions are such, it limits innovation. And I really think we need to reimagine what Baltimore could be and really do community development for community, not for work.
So I know you said that you're an artist. I'm hoping that we get some architectural stuff on you too. Edmondson Fremont
Mhm.
has a collection of some of the best architectural
The churches.
work in the city.
Mhm.
There's churches just in that 3-block area that are incredible, but I think it more than done by some of the most important architects from the last century. And then over to Harlem Park, same thing. Sellers Mansion is there. It's a really unique by Ernest Nelson. They're great firm in the city. They must cemetery, if you go to places like Lincoln Park. Is that something that you've had a chance to pay attention to, or gotten any feedback on, or found ways to get their story out? Because they all have great stories. Enon has been in the same church for ages.
For a long time,
I
right?
mean, ages, and no one knows about it. I don't know if you've had any connections with folks like that.
So I've reached out to the folks at Providence Inspirational.
And Joyce Scott, she's over there too. Her
Yep.
son is there too. So some of those are the things happening.
Yeah, so I know that Joyce Scott is really connected to the Black Arts District effort. But in terms of the churches, I walk or drive past Providence Inspirational almost every day. And they're lost spaces in a way. Many of those churches, though, they have small but mighty congregations that are holding on for dear life. And I think the big thing is visioning what can be. What can those spaces become, and not that serve the highest utility of the people in community now. And so that always is the thing, like, where do you trade? Folks say, oh, development is good, and it is only if it serves, in my opinion, only if it serves the interests of people who have been in community for the last 40 or 50 years. And so I'm pretty sure that there are things, collaborations and connections that can happen. And I'm hoping that the Arts District getting a designation will help to do that. But then there are also a lot of concerns about the land grab that may ensue. And so I think the biggest thing is making sure that we are working in collaboration and not in silo. And that's a struggle. That's a struggle for me as well, because as a natural researcher, I put my hat on and I get in the book, so I get on the computer and it's kind of zoned in. And so I'm working to really try to expand my collaborations with folks. It's just a matter of people being connected. And that is one of the biggest things that is broken when you have a city go from 1.2 million people to 600,000 people. You break the literal physical connection. So if I want to go to the house that my mother was born in Rocky Mount, North Carolina, I can do that. I can knock on the door and my great uncle is going to open the door and I can go in and sit in the room that my mother was born in. That is a power that people often discount, right? I know people in Baltimore whose families have lived for generations in houses that are now losing those houses and they don't even feel welcome on the block. That's a certain kind of that is a particular kind of devastation, especially for folks who have already lost their land where they came from, already lost their names, lost their religion, lost their culture. And when I say lost, it's not gone, right? But it's not in the forefront of everything. To have all of that snatched away, and then you make a life with the bootstrap story, like, she said, and then you get hung with the boot, like you figure out a way to fashion up some bootstraps because you ain't had no bootstraps to pull yourself up by. And then you end up getting hung by the very bootstraps that you done fashioned out of nothing. That is just really tough. And I think that's the human component, because we keep talking about structures. We talk about buildings, we talk about roads and transportation and all of that we have to talk about, right? Sustainability, green stuff, I'm with all of that. But it's the people, and we don't seem to really understand what it is like to come out of a house and look at vacant properties every day, all day long. And then you can go 2 blocks over. And it's like, I call Canton Candyland. Because you go down there, it's like, oh, it's a world away. It's like the tale of, I call Baltimore the tale of two cities, for real, for real. you know? And so it's just a matter of us making those connections and really trying to use, I feel like we have to use cooperative models. There's no way out of this unless we are using models that we know in the 9,500 years of human history prior to 1555, we know that cooperative models work. Cooperative models worked in Africa, they worked in India, they worked in Asia, they worked in Australia, they worked in, guess what? They worked in Europe too before whiteness got invented. Before that whole shenanigan became a thing, it worked there too. So we know that this thing that works. So why do we keep wanting to do this individual? It's foolishness.
Question. I think you brought up cooperative and like this is Dutch here and co-housing big in Europe.
Yep.
A couple years ago we had to be more for design proposals for row homes. And many of the ideas were it's you have to really think about it as a block. It's really hard to think of individual homes because they're all connected.
Right.
So when you talk about cooperative with co-housing, also for actually I mean you said cooperative, a way to think of it the whole collectively, like the whole, not just individual home, like selling one home at a time, rehabbing one, but just.
Yep. So absolutely. There was a group, there is a group called Intentional Community Building Collective. It was a group of 10 families roughly that came together to have Sunday dinner at each person's house. These are family in the fictive kinship way that African Americans do. This the person you was raised with since you was 7 and now you're family, right? So these families came together and had Sunday dinner, and somebody said one day jokingly, like, oh, it would be cool if I could just walk next door instead of having to get in my car and drive halfway across town home. And so they developed a model, and one of the things that they wrote was a co-housing plan for the city. That co-housing plan was seen by at least 3 of the sitting city council persons. And that's all it was, right? So that is there. You can't do one house at a time on a block with 40 vacant houses. One of the things I said in my white paper is that Baltimore needs a comprehensive co-housing plan. There really is no other way. You can do block by block. Baltimore is a city of blocks. You go one block, it look cool. You go next block, right? So if you can do block by block, but that is only going to be accomplished if you deal with the financing piece. And I think co-housing does that, because then you can employ like 203K loans. And I figure if you can get money to rehab a property based on future rental income, which is what the 203K loan program allows, then is no reason why a program can't be created to let you get money to rehab a property based on its future value. Because we know that the same properties, 1920 structures in Marble Hill are the same ones as in Bolton Hill. So if we could create a financing program that will allow you to do rehab based on a future value or the post rehab value, then we could get this thing popping today, tomorrow, next week, and this problem could be solved. It's just a matter of who has the will, who wants to do something different, who wants to, and I use conscious capitalism, but who wants to use capitalism in a new way? Because I struggle with it, because the reality of it is when capitalism came into being, people who looked like us were and still are in large part the capital, right? But yes, I think co-housing should be used. I think intergenerational housing is important as part of our cultural paradigm, and it is the way of being. Our culture is the cure.
Do you think that some of the high density multi-family housing that's being built above the ground up into McDonald, do you think that that's going to be successful, or should the model be the row house, the traditional row house?
I think we need a mix. We need all those things. We need studios. We need live work display space for all these wonderful artists that Baltimore has, right? We need, traditional row houses. We need all of those different things. I don't think this isn't a one solution pony or whatever, one trick pony. It's not that. We need all of those things, but we need those things based on what those individual communities define. Just like, you know, we need one of the powers of living in a segregated community is that folks came out of their door. Black folks could come out of their door and see the doctor. The kids could see a doctor, a lawyer, a garbage man, and all of those people were effectively leveled the same by racism in a way, right? They were all on the same level. And one of the things that integration did is erode that. So a lot of people don't have access. And it's important. It's not just one level access to get up to get up to the next level economically, but there's something for the wealthy to learn from the poor to stay human and stay connected. So multi-income living is good. We shouldn't have concentrating poverty, you know, poor people in one area. And when you concentrate anything, any extreme, you're gonna get pathology. And if you don't believe me, go to you know, people like to talk about Howard County, but I saw a lot of pathology in Howard County among wealthy people in different ways than it shows up in Baltimore among the poor, which is why Hopkins said that they needed to stay over East Baltimore and not leave, because they needed to study the particular pathology, and those people wouldn't be able to get to them if they moved, and the rich people whose pathology they wanted to study too could get to them. So we had to be real clear that anytime you have unbalanced extremes of these extremes, you're gonna have a problem. So we need to have a community should be made up of all kinds.
Yes, I'm one of the students from Redline. Thank you for your presentation.
You're welcome.
I was kind of interested when you started talking about the corner stores and the high prices you have to pay to buy your water or whatever. Condoms.
Hey, listen.
And that you instead go to Whole Foods because it's cheaper. Do you think, and the abundance of corner stores in West Baltimore, do you think it's a dying phenomenon, the corner store? And do you think we could try to, because the corner is quite an important place also for the community, it's very vibrant places. So what are we going to do with all these vacant corners? Plots in the future, and are there already examples of it being not a liquor store or not a corner store or not a, I don't even know what it else could be, so please
sub shop.
Yeah.
So yes, I think the corner is an important place culturally, right? And it's an important place just spatially. So I don't think we should throw all corner stores away. I don't think we should get rid of the corner store model, but I do think that corner stores should be in the business of offering fresh produce. Perhaps it can be a distribution location for food that is grown by the Black Church Food Security Network. Perhaps it can be a place where folks come and there's Wi-Fi hotspots. I think something like half of Baltimore don't have access to Wi-Fi at home. So I don't think you get rid of the corner store. I think you make the corner store elevate to its highest use in community. And that's not selling water for $2 a gallon. But again, we have to engage. Why does the city allow all these corner store licenses? It's all of those kind of things, but it's also up to folks in community to go and engage. And this becomes difficult because we are dealing with levels of trauma and issue that I don't have the words to express. Like, I have the privilege of having what people would call a higher income. I have the privilege of having an education, but I also have the skin and the gender that makes it that gives me the lived experience to be very clear. It is difficult to navigate these systems. It's tough. If I work 10 hours at Bayview, and then because of this raggedy transportation system, it take me 2 hours to get home, I don't got time to be sending nobody no email about the vacant house next door. Like, it's unrealistic. Some of, you know, the idea about community engaging is like unrealistic, because who has time for that? I don't have time for it. I got better things that I would rather be doing. But because I have access in a certain way, it is my responsibility to do this work. But I also understand that there are folks in community who are brilliant, who don't have access. And so I'm trying to be in the middle. But I don't hold, I don't have the same expectations. If you working double shifts and you got folks, I don't have the same expectations, and I don't think anybody should. I think that folks in power should have the consciousness and dignity to actually advocate on behalf of people who aren't in a position to advocate for themselves. And so corner stores is to me is a great place to start. It's already a community institution, but let's engage with the corner store. Or maybe we need a corner store. They got a green and sustainability plan. Maybe we need a corner store plan, corner store conversion plan. I don't know, but I just know that is a place that we ought not throw away per se. Maybe we need to repurpose or adjust purpose a little bit.
I think I missed it earlier, but as far as the Blight strategy, does Baltimore have a land banking system proposal that allows at least land to be removed from the speculative market as things are being consumed, to vet what can happen on that land? So
in the last several years, there was an affordable housing trust that was developed in coalition with like 40 different neighborhood and community organizations. They lobbied, and so that is coming into being. In terms of the speculation, it is so ingrained. I'm gonna give you a tax sale example. So right now it's tax sale season, right? So basically in Baltimore, if you don't pay your taxes, and until just this year, if you didn't pay your water bill, or if you didn't pay your water bill and you got a fine for not having a trash can top on your trash can, your house went to tax sale. Okay, house go to tax sale. There are companies that buy the tax sale certificates, right? So I found out here recently that the same companies that are purchasing tax sale certificates at the tax auctions have a separate arm, same company, separate arm, that then calls homeowners and says, oh yeah, I can offer you a loan at usury rates to pay off the tax certificate. So you hedging on both sides, so that the issues are so systemic and they're in places. I've been doing this work for 3 years. I hadn't even heard of that. Somebody told me about it. I was like, well, we literally can't win. Because it's so systemic. So I think we just have to get to the point where we continue to push these collective models. We continue to push non-speculative models. We also have to have folks in community make sure your elders have an estate plan, that you know what is going to happen to the house when Big Mama close her eyes, because the last thing you want is to have somebody get the piece of mail that says we'll buy your house for cash when grandmama just closed her eyes 2 days ago. You talking about a family fight if it's not already decided. We have all of these tangled title issues. So those things, making sure we have supporting the affordable housing trust, but also supporting things like the arts district, supporting artist space, the development of artist space where artists can live, safely live, work, and display, as I like to say, but also dealing with this. We have to deal with the estate planning issue. Maryland Volunteer Lawyer Service has a service where they walk people through that. They actually will help them untangle the title, which is what happens when someone dies without a will or estate, and then it's like 5 heirs, and somebody might be in jail, like that was mentioned earlier. Somebody might, be in the street, and somebody else might be in Owens Mills, and they don't want the house. So it's all of those kind of things. But we have to work on dealing with those pieces. It is coming. I think that because Baltimore is like the last American city, maybe Detroit might be close, where gentrification has not already just kind of cleared the board. People are working together to try to come up with whatever they can. We got folks, it's some folks squatting on the house. They squatted on the house after Freddie Gray, and now it's a community center. So people are working together. It's just, we haven't yet gotten to critical mass. But I think if we keep, if folks keep pushing, we can get there. But the speculators are already here. They've been sitting on properties for 150 years. So, I mean, they just waiting till you miss that one ground rent payment. I mean, really.
I grew up in Detroit, still stay in touch with a lot of folks there, and the tax sale process is one of the most insidious things. I don't know if it's the same in Baltimore, maybe we can elaborate on it, but the method of speculation is terrible. These are people from all over. It's not just people in Detroit. You can be anywhere all over the country, and when the time comes for this thing to come up, you just press a button and you basically win the house. And
So,
then you
auction.
flip the house in the auction. You flip it as quickly as you can for profit. And the most profitable thing to do is to buy multiple houses and sell them in tranches and get a massive profit back. And they just keep turning it over. The original owner just walked away and left the keys in the door, and the grass grows, the roof decays. Suddenly a house only a few years before, which is a home, it's just a shell being traded by people all over the country. I don't know if that's true for Baltimore or not. I don't know if that's the same thing.
It's a similar process. They have a tax sale. It's all online now. They sell the certificates. You buy the certificates, but then there's a redemption period. Then after the redemption period, then you can go to foreclosure. And so you have folks that just play that game, all around. So I think it's similar to Detroit in that way, but I think the bigger issue in Baltimore is how taxes are assessed on properties. So if you live in a neighborhood where more than 50% of the properties in the neighborhood are rentals, then the state of Maryland uses a gross income calculation to calculate your property tax. But I live in my house. So because most of the neighborhood is rentals, I'm getting assessed taxes as if I'm making income, right, off from the property. Apparently, Baltimore is the only jurisdiction in all the state of Maryland that still uses this equation. And when you challenge the equation like I did, and I said, well, first of all, how did you come up with this income figure? Because rent around here is not like $1,500 a month, for real. And then what's this gross income multiplier? Like, what's this number? What's the 7? Like, where y'all get that from? Like, what is that attached to? And the folks at SDAT basically told me, you need to make your case, not worry about our equation. Now, I went, like my bio said, I went to Poly. We do numbers down there. We do equations and whatnot, engineering and math and stuff. No, I'm not going to make my argument based off of nothing. I'm going to make my argument based off of where y'all explain these numbers. What was told to me is, oh, we don't really know how these numbers came to be. So I just kept challenging it and ended up getting my taxes reduced. But what it taught, the lesson that it taught me was that how taxes are being assessed are arbitrary. And if you are a poor homeowner, you are being punished for being a poor homeowner. Where do they do? Like, it's almost like that you keep changing it. We can just move the stuff all around the chessboard, like every time. So we fight the water bills and the tax assessments become a thing. We fight something else becomes a thing. So I think a part of it is really, community organizations being really powerful, working in coalition, but being quite honest. Like, we got to deal with who gets sent to City Hall and who gets sent down to Annapolis. We have to have some accountability there, and understanding that good people go down there. They might not stay good people because of the systems, but we have to be aware that and figure out ways. Like you said, we got to figure out hacks. Like, you can't, that's not going to work. Well, let me try this. And a lot of it is just going to be, we can't be afraid to fail. We got to, try different things, try different models, try hybrid models. and just kind of see what comes out. But I also invite very heavily. I invite the Black middle class to come on back in town, and that's, we can have a side discussion about that, but that's real. Like, we have thought often that proximity to whiteness would protect us, and we have moved to Owens Mills, and we have moved to gated communities, and our children are still being shot by random neighborhood people that were supposedly scared of them. And so I think that what has happened is that our community power, collective power, and understanding how to work collectively was eroded by that. And so I invite the Black middle class and the Black wealth to come on back to Harlem Park, and let's get this. We have the ingenuity, we have the creativity, we can have the cooperative economics to do what is needed. And any good white folk that's not afraid to live next door to us, come on, everybody can get this work. We can all get, or you can stay on down Canton, paying $3,000. Go ahead, or you can come up. You can come uptown. We can work together, because in all honesty, if we don't deal with this issue, it actually will destroy. This country can be destroyed. Like the same way it came into being, this thing don't have to stay. It can go away if we don't deal with this issue. So, oh, I'm sorry. Y'all gotta flag me. I'm at home.
Hi, I'm Rowan, a teacher in Rotterdam as well. The students, they worked for the last 2 months on the project Town, and the studio is called Just Baltimore. And after everything that you're saying, I'm kind of curious, what is your personal definition of a just city? Or just Baltimore?
Oh, of a just city. Yeah, that was really dope. He's in the back. That was really your presentation. I was saying your presentation was really dope, and I hadn't heard of Just City before, and so just trying to process it. I would say that a just city is a city that is a city where people are the center, and where the structure and services serve the people in total. That's what, well, off the top of my head. But I think it's a concept definitely to be further explored. And I definitely like the direction, like the way in which you all present, the way in which you all present it. It does make you think about how we're looking at city planning, or how we're thinking about things.
I do have one actually, because I think that last weekend I went to see the How to Kill a City. It was a book presentation, and I had no question, and I was sort of speechless, but I knew where the conversation was going at the end of the day, right? And what the author said was, at the end of the day, it's a cultural thing. How come Europe can deal or can dream about a just city, and how come the United States cannot? Is because the profit lies somewhere else. Like, there is a way where perhaps in Europe, or maybe I'm idealistic because I'm not there right now, where the profit is not at the center of the development. Well, here the profit is. So how can you? So like when you were presenting, I was thinking Blight and gentrification, but it's in the middle, right? Co-housing, maybe affordable housing. Something must be in the middle to help the community to be satisfied, not be displaced, but at the same time bring in different people, like you said, right? We cannot have neighborhoods that are one type of people. We need to mix, because the diversification is what makes a city hybrid, and that's what a city is. But how can you culturally teach a country that is capital driven, right? To understand that the community matters, and if we don't, in fact, inject that mixité, we are not going to go anywhere, because we're going to destroy it ourselves.
that's probably the question of the like the century. I don't think there's there's a single answer. I don't forget the name of the author, but they say culture eats strategy, right? And so we got all of these strategies about what we doing and this, that, and the third. But at the end of the day, we have to reckon with how America came into being. Like, if we don't deal with the very fact that the place that we call a democracy, its democracy was created when most of the people could not participate in the democracy that was created. Like, if we don't reckon with that, like, the story is a lie. Like, I hate to say it like this, the narrative of America is a lie. And if we don't deal with the lie, then nothing else. Like, if you build your whole house on a soggy foundation, this is a perfect place for this, right? You build your whole house on a foundation, and the foundation is made up of other people's bones, right? It's made up of people's literal bones. And you never acknowledge that. You never fill in the holes in between the bones in that foundation. How long you think? It's a miracle it stood this long. You know what I'm saying? How long do you think something can stand? I think that America is Europe's child, right? And so I think Europe has had an advantage in one way. The folks that were taken for free labor from West Africa primarily came to the Americas. It's not until the last maybe 50 years that you see a whole bunch of African descended people all up over Europe. Not that we wasn't never there before that, but all over Europe. And so there hasn't been the same, I mean, we're seeing it in France now, we're seeing it all over, right? There hasn't been that same animus. America had a long time to have Black folks in their face as a reminder, like, we really built this and you really benefiting, and that animus that comes from us being right, up in the face. And I think that is part of the reason why Europe may be a little ahead. But there's also, Europe has to deal with its legacy of colonialism, which isn't any different than, slavery in America. I just think that because numerically, there weren't as many of us in Europe until recently, that and because Europe kind of cut out of it, so they got their money, got their little diamonds and little whatnot, and all of the racial politics of the Europeans was still being played out up until like till right now in Africa still. Like diamonds, rubber, whatever so it's like, we over here co-housing and chilling and doing whatever with the money that we didn't stole up out of that. And we don't got to look at you every day. Where in America, you got to look at us. We here. And every piece of American culture, and every piece of the tapestry, we're there. There's nothing there. You can't find nothing. You go all over Baltimore and look at the wrought iron gates. Those are Adinkra symbols. That symbol, Sankofa, means reaching back to move forward. So Africans who were enslaved blacksmiths had enough forethought to send us a message not to forget. It's all over. Everywhere you go, you see those. There's nothing here that we didn't touch. And because of that, I think it's the hatred is a little bit, and I don't know why. Like, at this point, folks not tired. It's it's a game. They got poor white folks. I think it's hilarious in a way. So poor white folks in South Baltimore spent all of the 70s and 80s trying to keep Black folks out of South Baltimore, to be pushed out by their own skin folk. It's comedy. It's literal comedy. Y'all didn't see that coming? Yeah. It's like, come on. Like, but and we're going to continue to see that until people are able to deal with these narratives, the American exceptionalism, white supremacy, Black inferiority. Now we want to, turn Muslims into they did all the genocide of the world. Let's not start counting genocide. Like, let's We probably shouldn't do that. But until people really want to reckon with that, you can forget it. And Europe is going, they might have to reckon too. I'm sorry, you had something to say? I told y'all gotta.
No, I'm loving it. I want to break your concentration. I'm just thinking in terms of, in design, you always learn that constraint gives you sometimes the best design. Like if you have something that is challenging, that's where good design can take care of the rock in the house. And so the thing is, in this country, I think geography versus in Europe, our cities, they don't abut anything. So you just keep going, and then you just move the native down a little bit more, all the way from sea to shining sea. I think in the case of Europe or other cities, you kind of have to figure it out. You have to make it work. Like you mentioned, we have, in effect, 2 cities, maybe 3 cities.
Yeah.
So how do you make that blend? And it's because we just don't have to. Like I'm thinking everything that you're going through, and all the challenges. And I think Uber, I know Uber is not popular today.
Yeah, I didn't know Uber wasn't hot.
And anytime I get in a car, there's a driver from Baltimore, and she's saying, I can't wait to get out of here. I'm gonna take my kids out. I don't know how you do it. I don't know how the sort of wherewithal to deal with, not just throwing up your hands and go, I give up.
I quit every day. I literally quit. Every day.
Because I've been here for 8 years now, and there are days when it's like, and I work for the American Institute of Architects, advocating for a better Baltimore, and you go.
The other thing is, Europe had a more recent world war, so like stuff was blown up. So it's morbid to say, but then there was not a clean slate. There was a blank slate to kind of build and deal with some of these regional issues in a more, or city planning issues in a more modern way, where like Baltimore is a colonial city. So you literally got buildings from like 16 whatever around here. And so people weren't thinking of, city planning in that way. And so, yeah, necessity is the mother of invention, or whatever they say. So I think you get the people with lived experience. Y'all want to design stuff, get to the people who live without lights, without water. You got to, talk to folks and figure out, what their needs are, what their concepts are, what their creativity and ingenuity, what they vision, because they may have something real slick that you can then help bring into fruition. But because they've lived a certain way, their idea of design is going to be informed by that living. And if you haven't lived, I haven't lived in the country, like in the rural. So I don't think I would go out there trying to be a farmer, because I don't.
It's like hacking. Somebody know how to write a script over me,
But yeah, to his point, it's people in Baltimore that's mad about Uber. The hack man is mad. In the same way that the cabbies are mad, the hack man is mad. Again, because it subverted the natural economy. Like maybe we should use the Arabers to bring food to the corner stores. So those are the horse-drawn carriages, which is a part of Baltimore culture. So maybe we don't need more grocery stores. Maybe we need people to bring food to the Arabers to then take around the South. We just had to use. We got to use what's there and design from what's there.
So I just want to make one comment was brought up earlier in the presentation. One of the things that she talks about is how these impoverished neighborhoods and racial affects everyone. And she's done a study, not study, first paper, she looked at studies that although there are stigmas with African American communities and psychology as far as therapists, as far as sleep therapists. But she looked across the board where it's the most stressed are actually mainstream white Americans that are actually seeing therapists for more serious issues. And she also talks about this where we've sort of created this glass half empty half full concept where the neighborhoods like the African American neighborhoods that are impoverished or any that's impoverished, it's set up politically to be empty, whereas other neighborhoods are seen as kind of giving some type of hope. So there's an element of, as far as your challenges, this whole, you know, we're gonna destroy these other neighborhoods, we're gonna be more. But it just like what she's talking about, these sort of mixed environments, they're actually quite critical in understanding the health of a full nation or full community. That is actually a benefit for everyone, for, you know, both sides, and we could actually just see that. So I have some of this 17 had some issues that, you know, in the store where he's been sticking comments to, or I should say, however you want to put it. But, you know, until he's not seen as a monster, or until I'm not seen as a monster, you know, I think that it's critical that we understand, you know, I'm looking at you, looking at me, it's like a mirror, you know? And, but anyway, that's one thing, the point where you talk about the earlier, and how critical it actually is, if we don't see each other as being science. It's kind of like, yeah. What it is, what it is.
Here.
Well, I think that we start with here, right, with education. So university, even before, should be the place where we change mentality, where we do indeed see each other as people and not as skins. I remember a person who told me once that we should start with the children, that in a serious and productive way, that sending mandate people to go abroad and study abroad for at least 1 year when they are like 5 years old, to see that there are differences and it is okay. Nobody's gonna eat you or nobody's gonna yell at you. And, so, well, I think with this we conclude because we don't have anyone to speak this SD cards. I would like to thank everybody for being here and for sharing your knowledge.
But-
When you move over.